As the Congressman from the 20th District here in New York State, and I'd like to welcome Congressman Paul Tonko.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Tony, for your kind invitation. Thank you, Bruce, for your leadership. Thank you, Charlie, Jeff, and Steve, for the vision and planting of the seeds, which is so important. Thank you for also displaying the slide with Brian hanging from the side of the train. I enjoyed that one. And thank you, Jim, and all of the officers that currently serve ESPA. It's great to join all of you. I have certainly enjoyed working on rail issues since my days in the State Assembly when I was on the Transportation Committee, and now as a member of Energy and Commerce and as the Subcommittee Chair of Environment and Climate Change. We see you as a major contributor to responding to the climate crisis through the transportation sector. Let me describe myself as a twice-weekly train traveler, enjoying both Excella and a regular run from New York to Albany. I do that because of the most energy-efficient form of travel that rail is. And let me tell you that many times I would join the cafe car on that Albany train which I describe as a visit to Cheers, because these folks are on that car every week or perhaps every day coming back from the city and living in mid to upper Hudson Valley locations. And they all know each other and they really get into their train travel. But really am a fan of what rail brings to the country. Always am anxious to undo wipeouts to Amtrak that the executive branch will offer. The president is notorious for zeroing out Amtrak. Talking about public transportation in the sense that it's supposed to be profitable, but I think the whole thing about public transit is that it's there as a service to this state, country, our region more specifically, and we expect it as a government role, a government service that it's provided. So I take a different approach and was very, very proud back in the beginning of my congressional days to support the Recovery Act, which was a big opportunity for investing in rail, where in the 2009 Recovery Act, we were able to have some very strong investments made in rail. And unfortunately, that turned around a couple of sessions later with a change of leadership and not such a concentrated view of support for rail that took hold. But hopefully we're back to some positive things. Let me just cite the fact that I'm proud that I represent the Rensselaer Station in the House of Representatives, the fourth busiest of the Amtrak stations. I believe over 800,000 people had come through on an annual count. That tells us that rail is out there and vibrant as an offering. I believe that this past year has been a pretty robust year, coming close to breaking even, which is a pretty good statement in and of itself over the stretch of 50 years. So I think that if we work hard to provide for reliable, cost-effective, and fast travel by train, there's great, great potential that looms. Back to the Recovery Act, very, very much encouraged by the visual signs of growth with the Recovery Act, the rail improvements throughout the region that I represent, the work done at the Rensselaer Station, the work done for the new Schenectady Station. I know that you heard earlier from Mayor McCarthy, who was a major force working with the local economic development groups to bring that station into a revitalized bit of downtown here in Schenectady. And I think you can agree with me that it's a highlight of the cityscape and offers a good outcome for Amtrak travelers. Also, I know that on the books there have been study dollars already appropriated to my hometown of Amsterdam, which is looking at creating its own intermodal system with bringing the rail station to the Riverlink Park, rather than having it abandoned way at the western limit of the city, but bringing it into the epicenter of investment and innovation and rebirth, so that we have a more appropriate location and a more significant station, which I think is important. I think as we go forward, we need to recognize that, and I'll tell you something you already know, but I just want you to know that I recognize it. Investing in rail is not just about investing in us as passengers. It's investing in the economy, whether it's the regional economy, state economy, or national economy. It's a shot in the arm. It's a value-added investment that brings about lucrative dividends, and we have to see it as such. And so I think it's important for us to go forward and understand the value that it brings to all of us in economic terms, in environmental terms, and in social terms. The efforts, too, by the majority of which I serve, the Democratic majority, is to really focus heavily on infrastructure, but in a particular way, also trying to do a catch-up scenario with rail investment. So our moving forward Transportation and Infrastructure Standing Committee is to invest $55 billion in, I believe Jim talked about this, the $55 billion worth in that moving forward framework that will invest in rail, invest in congestion undoing congestion, and in perhaps some new track where it may provide relief that is needed for the system. I think that that is very important. We also see it as a way to invest in modernizing Amtrak and also speaking to ADA compliance, which I think is helpful, and also making certain that we work on the energy efficiency standards of Amtrak. As I indicated, I chair the subcommittee on environment and climate change. We recently unveiled our comprehensive legislation for climate. We call it the Clean Futures Act. And that basically is calling for an across-the-economy approach to climate as a crisis. I believe it's real, I believe it's based in science, and we need to act accordingly. If we're going to reach the very robust goals that we've established in the legislation that I introduced, which is 100% net clean carbon gas emission by the year 2050, we need to make certain that we reach to every sector to make that happen. Transportation being prime amongst them. And amongst the transportation offerings, I believe we can do a lot of decarbonization through the investment in rail. So I see it as a very important aspect of the work we do. In fact, some of the $55 billion with the Moving Forward framework that has been introduced by the House Dems is the fact that we want to harden some of the infrastructure that is a threat to rail, simply because of the growth of climate impact. So that as we harden that infrastructure, I think we're investing in a rail system in a very efficient way. But as we go forward, I would only ask my House to address rail as an important component to the efforts that we make to address the climate agenda and energy efficiency agenda. I travel rail simply because of its efficiency standard, which is helping us move forward with cleaning the air of pollutants. I believe that we need to go forward and pay attention to some reports that have been issued. Obviously, the report that was rendered in 2016 that spoke to the cost to consumers, the cost to travelers of idle time and congestion on highways was calculated down to the most regional of responses. And for this capital region, because of congestion on our highways, because of poor conditions of our highways, the deficiencies that are most noted, it costs, to their terms, $1,999 per traveler in this region because of that deficiency. So we need investments that will relieve consumers of that added cost of going to work or traveling within their home area. Finally, the report from the American Society of Civil Engineers grades us very poorly on infrastructure. They call for a continuum of an inclusiveness of infrastructure, including ports and roads and bridges and water systems. But they also do make high mention of rail. So my request of my colleagues in our caucus, the majority caucuses in the House, is to put a prime focus on infrastructure to put people to work and to address the essential services and projects. And I encourage us to do an energy efficient thing, and for that reason, rail should be at the epicenter of our discussions so that we can move forward accordingly. So to all of you who are such staunch advocates of rail travel, those of you who build the passion through your storytelling, those of you who live the rail agenda, thank you for empowering the voice of all of us in the House of Representatives, in Congress, both houses, encouraging the executive branch to look at rail, to provide for that fast, reliable, cost-effective outcome that will make rail all the more go-to in the thinking of the American public, and where we can create, I think, a sound economy that relies heavily on an environmentally friendly form of travel in rail. So thank you for the opportunity to join with you today. Thank you for the input that you constantly give us, and thank you as an organization for being so robust in your activity and your advocacy.
Okay, we'll take a few questions.
Yes, sir.
Can you speak to something I heard a few years ago is that we need to ask was the short line tax credit removed from immigration? Has there been any progress in looking at that?
There is some progress. There are a number of us who are calling for a revisiting of that tax cut. I voted against that tax cut for the reason that you cited first, because it got advertised as a middle-class tax cut. I could not see how that was the outcome with the parameters that they were addressing. So there are a number of us who think if we're going to invest in sound programming, including infrastructure, we need the revenues. And I think that some of those items that you mentioned need to be revisited. When we first came to session 4 years ago with the new president, it was fresh off of the campaign for every seat in the House, and both candidate Trump and candidate Clinton both showed great support for investing in infrastructure, as did a great majority of those running for the House seats, and members on both sides of the fence in the Senate. We abandoned that as the highest priority for that tax cut, which bloated our deficit to record proportions and did not provide relief to the working families and middle class. So now, in order for us to go back to what was the #1 priority, infrastructure, we need to recalculate so that we have revenues to make that happen. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your frequent and ongoing visits to our annual meeting. Given, well, a little bit before you got here, we were talking a little bit about rail electrification, freight and passenger around the country. Given your subcommittee chairship, wondering if you might be willing to slip a study into the fast that we are authorization to look at electrification from Poughkeepsie to Rensselaer.
You know, last year when I was here, some of you slipped me the program, the format, the vision of electrification. And I've raised it to the committee staff, subcommittee staff, and my own personal staff. And it is really something that, you know, planted a seed within my thinking. And it would be a great idea to get a demonstration project from Poughkeepsie to Albany. So while you identify a more doable stretch, let me see if we can get that to fruition. Maybe even into our infrastructure package. Anyone else? If not, again, my heartfelt thanks for all you do for rail. I am kind of excited as a Democrat to have Joe Biden in the final two, because Mr. Rail is looking to be president, and that kind of puts a smile on my face.